They say airports are filled with hellos and goodbyes. Mine held a ghost. It's been 7 years, but I can still hear the roll of her suitcase wheels on the airport floor. I can still see her, small, wrapped in a faded olive green shawl, hair tied in a tight braid, silver streaks shining like moonlight on coal. She walked slowly, as if every step was borrowed time, her hand tightly wrapped around my wrist like I was her anchor to this world. "Beta, do I need to take off my shoes here?" she asked me that day, looking around nervously. I remember smiling. "Not unless you're flying, Dottie." She laughed, and her eyes twinkled with something I couldn't name then. Something I know now: resignation. We were at Gate A12, the last place I saw her. The last place I ever saw her. My name is Ariv Mehta, and I'm 32 years old. I tell stories for a living, a freelance illustrator, a graphic novelist with more dream projects than money. But this story, this one has rotted in my chest like a fruit that refuses to fall. I've rewritten this opening paragraph over 200 times. I've torn pages, changed names, tried to fictionalize the pain, but it always comes back to her. The shawl. The waiting. The lie. Because 7 years ago, my father said to my grandmother, "Just wait here. We'll be back in a minute." And we never came back. I didn't know we weren't coming back. That's the part that haunts me most. It was a humid Sunday afternoon in July, the kind of sticky Atlanta summer that melted your spine. My father had picked me up from my apartment, said Dottie was finally going to stay with relatives in New Jersey. I was surprised. She hated cold weather. But he insisted she wanted the change. "She's been saying strange things, Ariv," he said, hands tight on the steering wheel. "She forgets her name sometimes. Last week she left the stove on all night. We can't manage this anymore." "She raised you," I muttered. "She deserves better than to be passed around like lost luggage." His jaw clenched. That meant the conversation was over. Dottie sat silently in the back seat, humming a bhajan under her breath. She tapped my shoulder at a red light and whispered, "I made a luparatha for you last night, but he told me not to bring it. Said you eat foreign food now." I smiled, throat tight. "I still like yours better." That made her laugh. For a moment, she looked 20 years younger. At the terminal, my father parked in the drop-off zone. He got out and helped her with her bag. I followed. The three of us stood there for a few moments, wrapped in silence and jet fuel. Then came those cursed words. "Just wait here, Ma. We'll go park the car and come inside." I still see the way she nodded, like she knew it was a lie but chose to believe him anyway. He didn't look back. I did. She smiled at me. That was the last time I saw her alive. We never parked. We drove straight out of the airport and onto I-285. I remember turning in the seat, confused. Aren't we going back for her? My father kept driving. She'll be fine. They'll help her at the counter. Her flight's been paid for. They're expecting her. My hands curled into fists. You told her you were coming back. He didn't answer. I didn't speak for the rest of the ride. 4 months after, I convinced myself she was with our cousins. That she just stopped calling because she didn't remember the number. That she was fine. Then the letters started arriving, returned to sender. Every envelope I sent was stamped in red, address unknown. That was 7 years ago. I never saw her again. My father never mentioned her again. And I never forgave myself. Today, I'm standing at Gate A12 again. It's strange how grief makes you seek the places that broke you. Like if you stand there long enough, time might unravel. Maybe this time, you'll do something different. Maybe this time, she won't be waiting. But I wasn't here for nostalgia. I was here for truth. You see, 3 weeks ago, I received an anonymous envelope. No return address. Inside, a black and white photograph of my grandmother. Not recent, no, this one was dated. And stamped on the back was one word, Nina. That wasn't her name. My grandmother's name was Saroj Mehta. So who was Nina? And why did the handwriting on the envelope look like my father's? I've started digging. And the deeper I go, the more rot I find. Financial records. Property transfers. A long-term care facility in rural Alabama. A place where names get changed. Where families pay extra to be forgotten. I didn't want this story to be about betrayal. But sometimes, the truth doesn't care what you want. I wish I could say I've healed. I haven't. Some nights, I still dream of her sitting at gate A12, legs crossed, telling strangers stories from her village, asking if anyone's seen her grandson. In the dream, I run toward her. But she never sees me. She's always looking the other way, waiting. So I'm writing this now, not as an artist, not as a son, but as a man crawling out of his own skin. This is not a story of forgiveness. It's a story of remembering. Because if I don't tell it, she disappears again. And I refuse to abandon her twice. I see her everywhere now. In the gentle clink of bangles. In the scent of turmeric when I fry eggs that don't need it. In the silence between phone calls that never come. She wore that sari every time she visited the temple. Cream with red borders, hand-stitched, soft like worn paper. I never thought I'd forget her voice, but memory is a slippery liar. Sometimes it shows you her eyes, but not her hands. Her laughter, but not the line that cut her cheek when she smiled. Grief doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers through the scent of sandalwood soap on a stranger at the grocery store. The photograph hadn't left my side in 3 weeks. Tucked inside a notebook, the creases deepening each time I opened it. Black and white. Slightly blurred. A woman sitting near a garden, legs folded, sari slightly crooked, not in the way she wore it when she was younger, but the way you do when no one's watching anymore. Her smile was small, almost shy. The date on the back said August 2019. My hands trembled when I looked at it the first time. I had thought she was dead. The name Nina haunted me. Why would someone rename her? Who would do that? The pieces weren't fitting. My father had always been cold, yes. But this felt surgical. Intentional. Like a story rewritten without consent. I called every meta-relative I could think of. No one knew where she was. No one had heard from her since the move. Some sounded confused, others uncomfortable. My aunt in Mumbai asked if I was finally seeing a therapist, as if that might explain why I was digging through the past like a grave robber. And maybe I was. Guilt isn't always loud. Sometimes it curdles slowly. 7 years ago, I convinced myself that my father had a plan. That he'd lied to her for a good reason. That she'd be safe. But now I know, safety wasn't the goal. Silence was. The dreams had changed lately. In them, she's not sitting anymore. She's wandering, through white hallways, barefoot, mumbling to herself. She keeps turning corners I can't see. Her sari is always the same, cream with red borders. Her hair is undone. I call her name. She turns to look at me. But it's never her face. I found a video. It took some favors, 2 encrypted emails, and a phone call to a guy named Michael I hadn't spoken to since college. He worked in airport security. Said he could pull footage from that day, if it still existed in archived backups. A week later, it arrived. July 8, 2016, gate A12, 3:12 p.m. The camera was high-grained, but I recognized the outline of her, small, frail, sitting quietly with her bag beside her. At first, she looked expectant, then confused. She checked her watch, checked the doors, then the watch again. People passed. Some glanced. No one stopped. By 5:46 p.m., she started talking to herself. Not in fear, but the way she used to talk to her plants. Gently, kindly. She gestured, laughed softly at something only she could see. By 8:23 p.m., she had curled into the corner seat. Her shawl tucked around her like armor. At 9:17 p.m., 2 security guards approached. She tried to stand but stumbled. They helped her. She didn't protest. She just asked if someone had come for her. I watched the whole thing with my hand covering my mouth. I called my father that night. He didn't answer. I called again the next morning. He did. His voice was as flat as ever. Ariv. You told me she was going to New Jersey, I said. A pause. She did. Briefly. I couldn't believe how easy the lie came. Like he was ordering takeout. Why was she listed in a care facility under a fake name? Another pause. This one longer. He sighed. She had episodes. She was forgetting names. Hers. Mine. Yours. She kept talking to people who weren't there. She couldn't live alone. She couldn't live with us. It was for her own safety. My voice cracked. You could have told me. You were a wreck. Lena had just left. You weren't stable. You would have tried to stop me. I would have visited her. I didn't want you to remember her like that. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was the most vile, twisted thing he could have said. He had stolen her memory under the guise of protecting mine, and I had let him. That night, I opened the notebook again and began to write. Not a story. Not a script. Just a letter. Dear Dottie, I'm sorry I didn't come back. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. You raised me. You held my hand when I was 5 and afraid of the dark. You braided my hair when I had chickenpox and didn't want to go to school. You loved me like I was your own breath. And I let you sit there, waiting. I don't even know if you hated me in the end. I deserve it if you did. But I need to believe that you waited because you still believed in me. I'm going to find you. Whatever's left, whatever they tried to erase, I will not let you disappear. Love, Ariv. I tore the letter out and folded it, slipped it into the photograph's envelope, and then I took the first real step forward in 7 years. Not away from the pain, but into it. Because healing isn't always about letting go. Sometimes it's about holding on to the right things, the truth, the memory, the guilt, just long enough to carve them into something that doesn't eat you alive. There's something profoundly unsettling about opening a box that shouldn't exist. I found it in my father's storage unit. A rusted metal trunk. Locked. Hidden under rolls of old paintings, tax folders, and the childhood sketchbooks he used to pretend to be proud of. The key, ironically, was taped to the underside, as if someone wanted to hide something but still wanted to remember how to find it. Inside, beneath folded wool blankets and a half-broken wall clock, were 12 letters. All of them addressed to me. None of them ever sent. Dear Ariv, your father says I shouldn't write. He says you are busy and don't want to hear from an old woman. But I saw a bird today, one you drew in your first notebook, the blue one with the yellow sun on the corner. And I thought of you. I always think of you. Love, Dottie. My fingers trembled as I picked up the first letter. The handwriting was unmistakable, slightly crooked but elegant, like her. She had taught me how to write my name in cursive when I was 5. She used to trace it in the air with her finger, making letters from nothing, telling me that even words have shadows. I read all 12 in one sitting. Some were dated weeks after she was placed in the facility. Others had no date at all, just time-stained ink and the scent of jasmine. Dear Ariv, I think I am in a place where time doesn't move. The windows here are always locked, and the staff speak in code. They call me MS Nina. I try to correct them, but then I forget what I was correcting. Have you ever had your name taken from you, Beta? It feels like being erased while you're still breathing. Every letter was a fracture, a bloodless wound. In some, she sounded lucid. In others, lost, as if she were writing from a dream she couldn't wake up from. She talked about me, about her garden, about how her hands ached but her heart ached more. She never once asked why I hadn't come, only that she missed me. That broke me. There was one letter near the bottom of the stack, folded differently. Smaller, more fragile. It wasn't addressed to me. It was to my father. I shouldn't have read it, but I did. Rakesh, you were born in fire. You always burned hotter than others. But I tried to keep you warm without letting you become ash. I am sorry I never told you the truth. You were not mine by blood, but you were mine in every other way. You were abandoned too. I found you in the hospital when your mother died in childbirth. I loved you like my own. Maybe that was the mistake. You always wanted a truth I couldn't give you. Now you've taken mine away. Goodbye, Beta. I sat on the cold concrete floor of that storage unit for what felt like hours. My father wasn't her biological son. He'd been adopted after a tragedy, and she'd kept it from him his whole life. I finally understood the hatred in his silence, the detachment, the erasure. To him, she had been a liar. But to me, she was the only real thing I'd ever known. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered, voice hoarse. Hello. A pause. Then a soft voice. Is this Ariv Mehta? Yes. This is Grace. I was a nurse at the Silver Pines care home, before it shut down. I found your number in an old logbook. I remember your grandmother. Nina, or sorry, Saroj. My throat tightened. She died there, didn't she? Another pause. Yes. 3 years ago. Silence. She used to ask for you, Grace added. Every Thursday. Said it was the day you'd visit. I never even knew where she was. I figured. The staff always said no visitors were allowed. But she kept this note by her bedside. The line rustled. A photo came in moments later. It was a note in shaky handwriting. He will come. My Ariv. Even if it takes years, he will come. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat at my desk, the letters spread around me like an altar. Every word of hers inked into my skin like shame, like love, like grief pretending to be memory. I poured myself a drink, then another. And then, for the first time in 7 years, I opened the email I had left unread, Lena's last message. Subject: I hope you find peace. Ariv, I couldn't stay. You were slipping into something I couldn't follow. You kept saying you were fine, but you were fading. Into silence. Into anger. Into guilt you wouldn't name. I loved you, but I couldn't carry what you refused to lay down. I still think about you sometimes. I hope, wherever you are, you've started breathing again. Lena. I closed the laptop. She had left me because I'd stopped living. And I'd stopped living the day we drove away from that airport. Not because I knew what had happened, but because somewhere deep down I did know. And I chose silence. I stared at the last letter Dottie had written to me. There was no closing, no signature, just a single line: even if I forget your face, I will always remember your voice. Grief is cruel like that. It doesn't kill you. It just waits, and waits, until you start to heal. And then whispers, but what if you had just turned back? Grief has a ringtone. It's not loud. It's not jarring. It's that soft, old-school chime your phone plays when the number calling is saved under someone you love, someone who isn't supposed to call you anymore. I hadn't opened my archived voicemails in years. But that night, after reading the letters, after hearing from the nurse, after rereading Lena's last message, I found myself unlocking a part of my phone I hadn't touched since the week we left her at the airport. There they were. 3 missed calls. All from the same number. All on the same day, July 12, 2016. 4 days after we abandoned her. First call, 9:43 a.m. voicemail length, 11 seconds. Beta, it's me. Just wanted to check if you got home safely. I think I am waiting for someone, but I forgot who. If you remember, call me. Click. Second call, 2:21 p.m. voicemail length, 17 seconds. Ariv, are you still coming? They gave me food, but it's not spicy enough. I asked the nice woman if I could call you again. I hope I didn't upset you. Come soon, Beta. Click. Third call, 7:14 p.m. voicemail length, 6 seconds. I don't want to be forgotten. Click. I don't remember crying like that in years. Not loud. Not gasping. Just leaking. My body sinking into the couch, the sound of her voice like a needle through cloth, stitching guilt into my lungs. I was trying to heal. I was journaling. I had started sketching again. I had even written Lena a message I never sent. But healing is hard when memories feel like knives. You want to move forward, but the past keeps dragging its nails down your back. The next morning, I drove to my father's house. I didn't call first. Didn't plan. I just showed up, because something inside me had snapped. Not from rage. From the ache of not knowing if she died thinking I didn't care. He opened the door like I was a salesman. Dry-eyed. Cold. Wearing that same beige sweater he always wore when he didn't want to feel anything. You look tired, he said. I found the voicemails. His face didn't move. I read her letters. I know everything, Dad. About the fake name. The home. The silence. I know you abandoned her. He sighed. Ariv, she called me 3 times. A pause. She was confused. Scared. She didn't understand why I didn't come. And I didn't come because you lied to me. He didn't flinch. She was a burden, he said. The words landed like glass between my ribs. I gave her everything for 30 years. Her medicine. Her food. Her bills. She kept wandering. Setting the gas on. Talking to shadows. She called you a rune once. Not even your name. So you left her? I placed her somewhere safe. Under a fake name? No visitors. She didn't know her name anymore. And you couldn't even handle your own girlfriend leaving, Ariv. You were a mess. I was grieving someone still alive. Silence. I walked past him and headed toward the hallway closet. That's where he kept the important papers, bank files, family documents, property deeds. I want her will, I said. He followed, suddenly alert. What? She had property in Rajkot. Jewelry from before you were born. Land she kept for retirement. Where is it? His voice sharpened. She didn't have a will. She wrote one. I found the draft in her letters. She had dementia. She had a lawyer. He went quiet. I knew then. There was a will. And he had buried it. The next few minutes were a blur of yelling, accusations, threats. At one point he said, she owed me. She wasn't even my real mother. She lied to me for decades. She didn't deserve to take everything with her. And there it was. The wound. The unhealed scar he had never spoken of. How she adopted him, how she lied about it, how he spent his life under a shadow of a truth never offered. But in the end, it didn't matter. She had still loved him. And he had still erased her. I walked out with a box of documents he didn't try to stop me from taking. Inside it, a scanned copy of her last will, leaving everything to my grandson, Ariv Mehta. A letter from her lawyer asking for a meeting, dated just 1 week before she was placed in the care home. And a receipt for a wire transfer, $42,000 withdrawn the day before she was institutionalized. Destination account, my father's. Twist the knife, why don't you? I sat in my car outside his house for over an hour. Just breathing. Just remembering her voice. The missed calls. The way she used to tie my shoelaces while pretending I was royalty. How she used to call me her sunrise. I should have picked up the phone. I should have fought harder. But I was drowning back then. And sometimes, drowning people don't even know they've pulled others under. I took the will to a lawyer that week. Filed everything. Opened probate. And I mailed my father a copy of the audio recording from our argument. He called 3 times. I didn't answer. Grief teaches you that some goodbyes are choices. And sometimes, refusing to say hello again is the only way to survive. That night, I visited my old apartment for the first time in years. The place I lived in when Lena left. It smelled of dust and mothballs and regret. I found the photo of us in Sicily. I was smiling. She was smiling. But my eyes, they looked far away. Even then, I was already fading. I looked at the sky and whispered something I didn't even realize I believed anymore. I miss you, Dottie. But I'm going to find peace. Even if it breaks me first. It's strange, watching grief in third person. There she was, Saroj Mehta, my grandmother, my whole childhood in human form, projected on a 20-inch security monitor in a dull gray room deep inside Hartsfield-Jackson Security Archives. This was where the past lived. In grainy footage. In time-stamped corners. In loops that refused to care if the person in the frame ever made it home. I had used every favor, every contact, every excuse in the book to get here. I told them I was writing a memoir, researching a documentary, even hinted at legal closure. In truth, I was chasing ghosts in data files. The security officer, a kind man named Henry, typed in the case number. July 8, 2016. Gate A12. Between 3 p.m. and 10 p.m. I nodded, my throat so dry I couldn't speak. He slid a flash drive into the terminal. Let me know when you're ready. I don't think I ever was. But I pressed play anyway. 3:12 p.m. She enters the frame, small, dignified, wearing her cream sari with a red border. Her bag rolls behind her like a reluctant child. She stops, looks around, waits. I felt sick. There was no one else in the shot I recognized. No sign of my father. No indication of where we went or how fast we'd left. She sits. She adjusts her shawl. She smiles at a passing toddler. She checks the time. Then she waits. 4:45 p.m. She's still there. The waiting has become less alert, her shoulders slightly slouched now. Her fingers fidget with the ends of her sari. She seems smaller. She speaks to someone off camera, a passing janitor, maybe. He nods politely but keeps walking. She looks at the camera. Right at it. As if she knows. And I swear, for a second I thought she was looking at me. Even now. Even years later. 6:03 p.m. She stands suddenly. Wobbles. She's looking around more urgently now. Moving toward the doors. Asking people things. No one stops long. No one helps. She returns to her seat. And curls in on herself. 7:58 p.m. A pair of security officers finally approach. She tries to stand again, but one of her shoes has slipped off. She smiles at them. Tired. Waves them off like she's not trouble. They gently help her up. She clutches her shawl with one hand, her bag in the other. They lead her out of the frame. Just like that, she disappears. I watched it 3 times. Then again in slow motion. Then frame by frame. I was looking for something. Anything. A moment of hesitation. A second where she stopped and realized. But she never broke. Not once. She waited with dignity. With grace. With the quiet patience of someone who believed, even after hours, that her grandson would come back. Where did they take her? I finally asked Henry. He clicked around, checking notes. Says here she was escorted to medical after staff reported dehydration. Then she was transferred to an elder care transport. Handed off to someone named Michael Baines. Michael Baines. I blinked. He nodded. Private contractor. Signed by power of attorney. My stomach dropped. That was my father's lawyer. I didn't say anything else. I just copied the file to my USB, shook Henry's hand, and left. Outside, the world spun. The airport was louder now, families shouting, carts honking, wheels scraping tile. But all I could see was her silhouette in that chair. She had waited 6 hours. 6 hours, and not one person had asked if she needed help. 6 hours, and I hadn't called once. Because I was still trying to glue myself together after Lena left. Because I let my father gaslight me into thinking everything was taken care of. Because I was a coward. I got in my car and drove without direction. I passed gas stations. Strip malls. A church with a sign that read, "You're not broken. You're breaking open." Maybe. Or maybe I was just coming apart. Back at home, I opened the video again and paused it on one frame, the one where she looked directly at the camera. I printed it. Then I pinned it to my wall. Under it I wrote, "I'm here now." That night, I dreamed of her again. Not lost. Not confused. But young. Wearing a sky blue sari, standing. In the kitchen, humming an old Kishore Kumar tune. Her bangles clicking against the stainless steel ladle. The scent of cardamom and rose water in the air. She turned to me and said, "You look tired, beta. Sit. Let me make you tea." I nodded. But I couldn't sit. Because in the dream, the kitchen floor was made of sand. And I kept sinking. I woke up choking on my own breath. I stared at the photo on the wall. Healing was supposed to get easier. But I was starting to think that healing wasn't about forgetting. It was about remembering so fully, so painfully, that the wound could finally close. The next day, I got a call from the law office where her original will had been drafted. They had found something in their archives, a second envelope. Labeled simply, "For Ariv, in the event of disappearance." I didn't open it right away. I just held it. The paper was soft. Like her hands. Like the memories I couldn't put down. It's unsettling how death can be so quiet. When people picture the end, they imagine sirens, tears, hands being held. But in places like Silver Pines Residential Care, death is silent. folded sheets, unclaimed slippers, empty beds. I drove 3 hours to get there. A rural town no one talks about, a place marked by cracked pavement, sun-bleached gas stations, and faded church signs warning about the end times. When I pulled into the lot, I half expected the building to be gone. But it stood squat and gray, with a rusting sign that still read Silver Pines. The word closed spray-painted across it like a bad afterthought. My grandmother died here. Alone. Under a name that wasn't hers. I sat in the car for a long time. Not crying. Not shaking. Just waiting. Like she had. I don't know what I expected. Maybe ghosts. Maybe an apology. Maybe closure in the shape of a brick wall. The front door was chained shut, but a side panel had come loose. I slipped through. Inside, the air smelled of mildew, dust, and something that felt like sorrow. Peeling wallpaper. Scuffed tiles. Broken wheelchairs in corners like abandoned memories. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, but I kept walking. Then I found the intake room. Folders stacked in milk crates. Papers half shredded, water-stained. And then in the third crate, a name, Nina Mehta. I opened it slowly, like it might scream. Inside, intake forms signed by my father. A forged medical summary stating cognitive decline and aggressive behavior. A psych evaluation. And at the very back, a daily activity log. Most of it was routine, meals, medications, vitals. But one entry stood out. October 14, 2017. Nina became distressed today. She was calling out for someone named Arif repeatedly. She insisted her grandson was coming. She refused dinner, sat by the door for hours. Night staff had to sedate her at 11:47 p.m. I had to sit down. The floor was cold and cracked beneath me. I imagined her there, by the door. Her thin hands resting in her lap. Murmuring my name like a prayer that wouldn't come true. I found something else. Taped to the last page of the file, a photo. It was a drawing. A child sketch, pencil and smudges, of a boy and an old woman holding hands. The boy had wild hair. The woman wore a red-bordered sari. The note underneath was written in blocky handwriting, "My grandson will find me." I don't remember leaving the room. I think my body walked out while my mind stayed behind. Outside, I sat on the front steps of Silver Pines as the sun began to dip behind the tree line. Everything looked gold. Hollow. Distant. I took the envelope from my pocket. The one from her lawyer's office. For Arif, in the event of disappearance. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside, a letter. Faded. Neat. Written in her voice. That soft, unsure English she only used when she wanted to be serious. My Arif, if you are reading this, then the world has taken me somewhere I can't come back from. Maybe I forgot too many things. Maybe someone forgot me first. But I want you to remember one thing, I never left you. Even when I couldn't find my own name, I remembered yours. You were my greatest love story. Not a husband. Not a son. You. If they try to erase me, let them try. You remember me the way I was, laughing at TV serials, mixing sugar into your rice when you weren't looking, hiding money in your math books for snacks. You remember the woman who raised you, not the one they buried under silence. If the world made me disappear, promise me you'll make me visible again. Love you till the last breath, Dottie. By the time I finished reading, the sun had dipped below the trees. And for the first time in years, I let myself cry like a child. Not because she was gone, but because she had never stopped waiting. Even in death, she believed in me more than I ever did in myself. On the drive back, I didn't listen to music. I let the silence wrap around me like her shawl. I kept one hand on the wheel and the other on the letter. And in my chest something shifted. Not peace. Not yet. But something close to it. The beginning of forgiveness. The shape of healing, sharp, but finally forming. And as I reached the city lights, I whispered into the windshield, hoping it might carry to wherever she was, "You're visible now, Dottie. I see you. And I will never stop telling your story." Grief doesn't vanish. It folds itself into drawers, mental ones, hidden dusty, waiting to be reopened when you're strong enough. 2 months had passed since I found the letter. The will had gone through. My father stopped calling. The inheritance, the land, the accounts, everything was transferred to my name. I didn't touch a rupee of it. Instead, I focused on Dottie. Her name was officially changed back on every record I could locate. I published an obituary in 3 newspapers, titled, "Her name was Saroj Mehta." I set up a small community library in her name at the local temple. Filled it with stories she loved, Hindi folk tales, cookbooks, spiritual texts. But one thing still haunted me, the drawer. When she lived with us, Dottie had a tiny wooden writing desk. Old-fashioned. 3 small drawers. 1 large. The bottom one, the biggest, was always locked. "Nothing interesting in there," she used to say. I had brought the desk with me after cleaning out my childhood home. It sat untouched in the corner of my apartment. Until that night. I used the hairpin she once wore in her bun to pick the lock. Inside, wrapped in an old silk dupatta, were a faded Polaroid of her as a young woman in Delhi, a gold chain with a pendant I'd never seen before, and a stack of letters addressed to someone named Mira. I didn't know who Mira was. But the first letter revealed everything. "Dear Mira, I think of you every year on your birthday. I still remember the way you cried the first time you fell off the swing, and how you asked me if the sky had a mother. I hope wherever you are, someone tells you yes. I wanted to keep you. But I was only 20, and the world was not kind to unwed mothers then. They took you away before I could even name you. Your brother, Rakesh, never knew. I couldn't raise 2 children alone. And so I chose silence. But I loved you. God, I loved you. If somehow, someday, this letter finds its way into the light, please know, I never stopped being your mother. Love, always, Saroj." Mira was my aunt. My father's full sister. Lost to the system. A ghost in our family tree. And suddenly everything made sense. My father's coldness. Dottie's sadness. The shame she carried alone. So many things she took with her into that care home. 1 year later I found Mira. It took 6 months of searching. Her name had changed twice. She had been in and out of foster homes, adopted at age 4, renamed Maria. She lived in Pune. She had 3 children. And when I told her everything, slowly, gently, brokenly, she cried for the mother she never got to call Amma. We met by the sea. She brought photos of her kids. I brought the pendant. We didn't talk much. We just sat. And somewhere between the crashing waves and the sky going orange, she said, I think she waited for both of us. Today the library has her name carved into stone. Saroj Mehta Memorial Library, for all the stories left untold. I teach storytelling workshops there now. I tell people that memory is a rebellion. That remembering someone who is meant to be forgotten is an act of love, of war, of healing. And every year, on July 8th, I go to the airport. Gate A12. I sit for 6 hours. Not because I have to, but because she did. And now, she's not waiting alone.